Chapter 1, The Shadows We Save. The engines of the emergency chopper roared against the backdrop of a chaotic Caracas skyline. The orange hues of the setting sun painted the heavens, a stark contrast to the grim urgency that engulfed the rescue crew. The air smelled of burning fuel and impending tension. The Health Response Team, HRT, an elite medical squad specializing in high-risk extractions, was about to enter another battlefield, one they couldn't afford to lose. Dr. Evelyn Monroe adjusted her headset as the pilot relayed updates on their latest mission. Evelyn, the team leader, exuded an unshakable calm that had earned her the nickname the Ice Vein among her colleagues. Years in trauma units and war zones had shaped her into a decisive, no-nonsense professional. Her motivations were deeply personal. She had once lost someone because no one dared to intervene. This job was her redemption. To her left, Liam Tex Carter, the team's paramedic and self-proclaimed morale booster, tapped anxiously on the armrest. His cowboy drawl and endless arsenal of jokes hit a more serious drive. A promise he'd made to himself to leave no one behind. He glanced over to Jonas Park, the rookie on his first field mission, wide-eyed and clutching his medical kit like a lifeline. "Relax, kid," Tex drawled. "It's just another Tuesday, except for the bullets, the gang members, and the guy bleeding out. No pressure." Jonas offered a weak smile, beads of sweat forming on his temple. He wasn't sure if Tex's humor made things better or worse, but it was hard not to be swept up by his unyielding confidence. Then there was Sofia Alvarez, the team's logistics expert and Evelyn's right hand. Sofia was glued to her tablet, her sharp eyes darting through detailed maps of the area. If Evelyn was the brain, Sofia was the pulse, always anticipating the team's next move. Her stoic exterior masked a fierce determination to prove herself in a field dominated by men. Their target? Raul Estevez, a high-profile criminal injured in a shootout between rival cartels. His organization was paying a fortune for his extraction, and the international bank funding HRT expected results. The team wasn't in the business of judgment. Their job was to save lives, no questions asked. But not everyone agreed Raul deserved saving. "This guy shot 2 innocent people last month," Jonas blurted out as the chopper dipped lower, breaking through the city's smoke-filled atmosphere. "Why are we risking our necks for him?" "Because that's the job," Evelyn replied sharply, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We're not the judge or the jury. We're the lifeline." The chopper touched down on the rooftop of a dilapidated warehouse. Shots echoed in the distance. Sofia raised a hand to signal the team to stay low. "Intel says he's on the 3rd floor, but it's a hot zone," she briefed. "We've got hostiles on site. We'll need to move fast." Descending through the building felt like entering the layers of a war zone. Broken glass crunched under their boots. Walls were scarred with bullet holes, and the metallic tang of blood hung in the air. Tex hummed an old country tune, his attempt at easing the palpable tension. "Gotta love a fixer-upper," he muttered as they reached the 2nd floor. Suddenly, a door burst open, and a young girl no older than 9 stumbled out, crying. Her face was smudged with dirt, her arm wrapped in a makeshift sling. She froze upon seeing the team. Jonas instinctively stepped forward, but Evelyn's outstretched hand stopped him. "Not yet," she whispered, scanning the shadows. "Clear," Sofia confirmed after a tense beat. Evelyn crouched to meet the girl's eyes. "You're safe now. Can you tell me where the others are?" The girl's trembling finger pointed upward before collapsing into Jonas's arms. It was enough to spur the team into action. They reached Raul's location to find him slumped against the wall, blood pooling around a gunshot wound in his abdomen. His breathing was shallow, his complexion pale. Tex knelt beside him, pulling out supplies. "Well, Raul, looks like you've had better days." Raul tried to muster a smirk, but grimaced instead. "Just get me out," he rasped. The extraction wasn't going to be straightforward. Gunfire erupted from the lower floors, sending shudders through the building. Sofia's earpiece buzzed with updates from their pilot. "You've got 5 minutes before this place turns into a hot zone. Extraction point's a no-go. Find another route." "Plan B." Evelyn declared, motioning for Sofia to lead. Raul groaned as Tex and Jonas hoisted him onto a stretcher. The team navigated the building's narrow hallways, their movements synchronized like clockwork. Jonas stumbled, nearly dropping his end of the stretcher, but Tex steadied him. Eyes forward, kid. We're almost there. Reaching the back of the warehouse, they found a rickety fire escape leading to an alley. Evelyn cursed under her breath. It wasn't ideal, but it was their only option. Sofia descended first, scouting for threats. She signaled the all clear, and the team followed, their breaths ragged but determined. As they reached the alley, headlights pierced through the darkness. A black SUV screeched to a halt, its doors swinging open. Evelyn's heart sank, reinforcements, and not the friendly kind. Chapter 2. Into the crossfire. The night was alive with chaos. Gunfire crackled in the distance, echoed by the wailing of sirens that never seemed to draw any closer. The team crouched low behind a rusted dumpster in the narrow alley, catching their breath. The black SUV that had screeched into their escape route was now disgorging armed men, their silhouettes backlit by the vehicle's powerful headlights. Evelyn's mind raced. She scanned their surroundings, quickly calculating their dwindling options. Raul groaned on the stretcher, his pallor worsening by the second. The wound in his abdomen was a ticking time bomb. They couldn't afford to lose any more time. Sofia, what do we have? Evelyn whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Sofia's eyes darted between her tablet and the alley. There's a maintenance ladder 2 blocks down, leading to an overpass. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Tex let out a low whistle. Risky's putting it mildly. Those guys look like they don't do warning shots. Jonas tightened his grip on the stretcher, his knuckles white. We can't just sit here. We'll be sitting ducks. Evelyn nodded. Agreed. Tex, cover our 6. Jonas, stay steady. Sofia, lead the way. With that, the team moved as one, weaving through the shadows as bullets ricocheted off brick walls and shattered glass rained down around them. Tex fired a few suppressive shots from his sidearm, his usual jovial demeanor replaced with cold precision. Let's keep moving, folks. I'm not sticking around for the grand finale. As they reached the ladder, the realization hit Evelyn like a punch to the gut. The alley was too narrow to maneuver the stretcher up the maintenance ladder. Raul's weight, combined with his deteriorating condition, made it a logistical nightmare. They needed another solution, and fast. Leave me. Raul croaked, his voice barely audible. I'm not worth it. Evelyn's jaw tightened. We decide who's worth it, not you. Sofia scanned the area, her eyes locking onto a graffiti-covered service, door a few steps away. Plan B, she announced. We take him through there. It leads into the subway tunnels. Perfect, Tex quipped, firing another shot behind them. Love a good underground adventure. They shoved the door open, the hinges screeching in protest. Inside, the air was damp and suffocating, the faint hum of electricity buzzing through the walls. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows, but the team pressed forward. Every second counted. The subway tunnels stretched endlessly before them, a maze of tracks and concrete. Sofia's tablet pinged, showing a route that would lead them to an emergency exit 2 miles away. But just as relief began to settle in, a deafening roar erupted from behind them. The SUV's armed men had followed them into the tunnels. Go! Evelyn shouted, her voice cutting through the echoing chaos. Tex, Jonas, get Raul out of here. Sofia and I will hold them off. Tex hesitated for a split second, his loyalty warring with his instinct to protect the team. Don't do anything stupid. Document. Just move. Evelyn snapped, already taking position behind a concrete pillar. The next few minutes were a blur of gunfire and shouted commands. Sofia's sharp aim kept their pursuers at bay, her no-nonsense efficiency a stark contrast to Tex's showboating style. But even as they held their ground, Evelyn knew they were outmatched. Then, as if fate had a cruel sense of humor, Raul's stretcher snagged on the tracks, tipping precariously. Jonas scrambled to steady it, his panic evident. I can't. Tex was at his side in an instant, his gruff reassurance cutting through Jonas's fear. "Breathe, kid. One step at a time. We've got this." Together, they lifted Raul back onto the stretcher, their combined strength propelling them forward. But the delay cost them. Their pursuers were gaining ground. Just as hope began to wane, a low rumble echoed through the tunnel. At first, it seemed like the armed men had brought reinforcements. But as the sound grew louder, Evelyn realized what it was. A subway train. Chapter 3, A Web of Secrets. The faint rumble of the subway train faded into the distance, leaving behind only the echo of hurried footsteps and strained breaths. The team burst through an emergency exit into a dimly lit storage area, the air thick with the metallic scent of rust and stale water. The relentless adrenaline that had propelled them through the night was beginning to wane, replaced by the grim reality of their situation. Evelyn motioned for everyone to stop. "We hold here," she said, her voice calm but firm. Tex set Raul's stretcher down carefully, wiping the sweat from his brow. Jonas collapsed onto a crate, his chest heaving as he clutched his medical kit. Is it always like this?" he panted, his voice tinged with disbelief. Tex let out a dry laugh. "Welcome to the party, kid. You'll get used to it. Or not." Sofia, ever the pragmatist, was already scanning the room for supplies or exits. Her fingers danced across her tablet, pulling up maps and schematics of the area. "We're off the grid for now," she said, "but it won't last. They'll regroup and come after us again." Raul, pale and visibly weaker, struggled to lift his head. You don't understand," he rasped. "It's not just them. There's more." Evelyn crouched beside him, her sharp eyes locking onto his. "What do you mean? Who else is after you?" Raul hesitated, his gaze darting between the team members. "The people who hired you, they don't want me rescued. They want me silenced." The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the distant hum of machinery. Jonas stared at Raul in shock. "Wait, what? You're saying the people paying us wanted us dead from the start?" Tex finished, his usual levity replaced by a grim understanding. "Figures." Evelyn rose to her feet, her mind racing. The mission had been precarious enough with just the cartel on their trail. Now, the shadow of betrayal loomed over them, complicating everything. "Sofia, we need answers. Find out who's behind this." Sofia nodded, her expression grim. "On it, but it'll take time." As Sofia worked, Tex tended to Raul's wound with uncharacteristic seriousness. The man was fading fast, and the truth he held might be their only lifeline. "You've got one chance to come clean, Raul," Tex said, his voice low. "Who are we dealing with?" Raul's eyes flickered with pain and fear. "The bank," he muttered. "The same people funding your team. They're using you as pawns." Evelyn's jaw tightened. She had suspected something was off about this mission, but hearing it confirmed was another matter entirely. "Why?" she demanded. "What are they after?" Raul coughed, a grim smile playing on his lips. "Information, leverage, power. Doesn't matter. They'll kill us all to keep their secrets safe." The weight of his words settled over the team like a shroud. Jonas, still processing the revelation, spoke up. "So, what do we do now? We can't just hand him over." Evelyn glanced at each of her team members, their faces etched with determination and exhaustion. "No," she said firmly. "We finish the mission, but on our terms." Sofia looked up from her tablet. "I've got a lead," she said. "There's an old service road nearby. If we can reach it, we might find a way to stay ahead of them." "Then, that's where we're headed," Evelyn decided. "But we need to be prepared for whatever comes next." As the team gathered their gear, a sense of uneasy resolve settled over them. The mission had shifted, the stakes higher than ever. They weren't just fighting to save a life anymore. They were fighting to expose the truth. But the shadows were closing in, and they all knew the worst was yet to come. Chapter 4. Behind enemy lines, the SUV roared down the service road, headlights piercing through the night like glaring eyes. The sound of tires skidding to a halt cut through the silence as the armed men regrouped, a reminder that the team's respite would be short-lived. Meanwhile, Evelyn, Tex, Jonas, and Sofia pressed forward, carrying Raul on the stretcher as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the underground service route. The dim lighting cast long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly, and the distant echoes of water droplets played tricks on their ears. Sofia took the lead, her tablet screen casting a faint blue glow on her determined face. "There's a junction up ahead," she announced, her voice steady despite the tension. "If we take the left tunnel, it'll lead us into cartel-controlled territory, but it's the fastest route to the extraction point." Jonas hesitated, his grip tightening on the stretcher. "Cartel-controlled? Are we seriously considering that?" Tex chuckled, though his tone lacked its usual levity. "Relax, kid. It's not like they put up 'Welcome to the cartel' signs. We'll be in and out before they even notice." Evelyn shot Tex a sharp look. "Enough. We don't have the luxury of avoiding risks. We move quickly and stay sharp." As they entered the left tunnel, the air grew heavier, saturated with the stench of oil and decay. The graffiti on the walls became more erratic crude symbols and warnings scrawled in jagged lines. Sofia glanced back at Evelyn. "We're close, but we'll need to bypass a checkpoint. If they spot us with Raul, it won't end well." Evelyn nodded. "Then we make sure they don't spot us." The team moved in silence, their footsteps muffled by the grimy floor. When they reached the checkpoint, they crouched behind a stack of rusted barrels, peering out at the scene. 3 cartel members stood guard, their weapons slung casually but their expressions alert. A 4th sat on a makeshift stool, playing with a deck of cards under the flickering light of a single overhead bulb. Tex leaned in close to Evelyn. "We could take them, quick and clean." "No," Evelyn whispered back. "We avoid engagement unless absolutely necessary." "Sofia, is there another way around?" Sofia shook her head. "Not unless you want to add another hour to our route." Evelyn's mind raced. Every second they spent here increased their risk of being discovered. Raul let out a quiet groan, drawing the cartel members' attention for a brief moment. Jonas held his breath, his fingers twitching nervously. Then an idea struck Sofia. "The ventilation shaft," she murmured, pointing to a narrow grate on the wall. "It runs parallel to the tunnel. If we can get Raul through it." Tex raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding, right? That thing's barely wide enough for me to stick my head through." "It's our best shot," Sofia insisted. "I'll stay behind and create a distraction while you get Raul through." Evelyn hesitated, weighing the options. Finally, she nodded. "All right, Sofia, be careful. The rest of us will move as fast as we can." Sofia removed the grate, revealing a dark, cramped passage. Jonas grimaced but helped Tex lift Raul into the shaft. The injured man groaned in protest, his voice weak but insistent. This is insane." "Welcome to the club," Tex muttered, squeezing into the shaft after him. As Evelyn and Jonas followed, Sofia stepped out from behind the barrels, drawing the cartel members' attention. "Hey," she called, her voice echoing through the tunnel. "Lost my way. Can you point me to the nearest exit?" The guards snapped to attention, their weapons raised. Sofia held her hands up, feigning innocence. "Relax, boys. I'm unarmed." The distraction worked. The rest of the team crawled through the shaft, their progress slow but steady. The confined space amplified every sound, from Raul's labored breathing to the scrape of their gear against the metal walls. Jonas fought back a wave of claustrophobia, focusing on the rhythmic sound of Evelyn's voice as she guided them forward. When they finally emerged on the other side, they found themselves in an open courtyard, the night sky visible above. Tex helped Raul onto the stretcher while Evelyn scanned their surroundings. "Where's Sofia?" Jonas asked, his voice tinged with worry. "She'll catch up," Evelyn replied, though her expression betrayed her concern. As if on cue, Sofia appeared through a side entrance, her breath coming in short gasps. "They took the bait," she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. "We've got a clear path for now." Evelyn placed a hand on Sofia's shoulder. "Good work. Let's move." The team pressed on, the distant sound of voices reminding them that they weren't out of danger yet. But for the first time that night, a faint glimmer of hope flickered on the horizon. Chapter 5. Betrayal in the Shadows. The courtyard was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that pressed down on the ears and heightened every breath, every footstep. The team had made it to an old, abandoned factory on the edge of the city. Rusted machinery littered the space, and the faint smell of oil lingered in the stale air. It felt like a safe place to regroup, but Evelyn knew better than to trust appearances. Tex lowered Raul's stretcher onto a makeshift table, his movements careful, but his expression grim. Raul's wound was worse than they'd feared, and time was slipping away. "He's not going to make it unless we find proper medical supplies," Tex said, his voice uncharacteristically somber. "This patchwork isn't going to hold much longer." Sofia was already scanning her tablet, trying to locate the nearest safe zone. "There's a clinic a few miles out. We could raid it for supplies, but it's a risk." Evelyn rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on her. "We don't have a choice." Sofia marked the route. "Jonas, you'll stay here with Raul. Tex and I will go." Jonas looked up, panic flickering in his eyes. "Wait, you're leaving me here? Alone? What if they find us?" "They won't," Sofia said firmly. "I'll set up surveillance. You'll be our eyes and ears. Just keep Raul stable." Jonas swallowed hard and nodded, though his hands trembled as he checked Raul's 4. Evelyn caught the unease in his expression, but didn't have time to address it. Every moment spent debating was a moment closer to losing Raul. Tex grabbed his gear, nodding to Evelyn. "Let's move, document. No time to waste." As Evelyn and Tex slipped out into the night, Sofia stayed behind to reinforce their perimeter. Jonas tried to focus on Raul, but his mind raced with doubts and fears. The weight of responsibility was suffocating, and every shadow seemed to move with malicious intent. Raul stirred, his voice weak, but urgent. You can't trust them," he murmured. Jonas frowned, leaning closer. "What are you talking about?" "They're not who you think they are," Raul said, his words slurring. "The bank, they're playing all of you." Jonas felt a chill run down his spine. He had always trusted Evelyn and the team, but Raul's words planted a seed of doubt. Could there be more to this mission than they were being told? Meanwhile, Evelyn and Tex navigated the dark streets, their senses on high alert. The city was a maze of danger, and every corner felt like a potential ambush. As they approached the clinic, Evelyn's earpiece crackled to life. "We've got company," Sofia's voice warned. "2 vehicles heading your way. They don't look friendly." Evelyn cursed under her breath. "We'll have to move fast. Tex, cover me while I grab the supplies." Inside the clinic, the air was stale, and the dim light flickered overhead. Evelyn moved quickly, gathering bandages, antibiotics, and whatever else she could find. Tex stood guard at the entrance, his gun drawn and his eyes scanning the street. "Got it," Evelyn whispered, stuffing the supplies into her bag. "Let's go." They slipped out through the back, narrowly avoiding the approaching vehicles. But as they rounded the corner, they found themselves face to face with a group of armed men. It wasn't cartel, it was someone else. "Hands up," one of the men ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. "You're coming with us." A group of armed men closing in on them outside. Chapter 6. Breaking point. The factory was quiet again, but only on the surface. Jonas sat by Raul's side, his mind a whirlwind of doubt and fear. Raul's cryptic warnings lingered like an echo, gnawing at the edges of Jonas's resolve. Could Evelyn and the rest of the team be hiding something? Were they all just pawns in a game too big to comprehend? Raul's labored breathing brought Jonas back to the present, a grim reminder of the fragile life they were fighting to save. Meanwhile, Evelyn and Tex were cornered. The armed men blocking their escape route radiated professionalism. Their movements were precise, their weapons steady. They weren't cartel. These were mercenaries. "You're making a mistake," Evelyn said, her voice firm but calm. She raised her hands slowly, signaling she wasn't a threat for now. Tex followed her lead, though his jaw tightened as his eyes darted for potential cover. "No mistake," the leader of the mercenaries replied coldly. "Hand over the supplies and walk away." "Not happening," Tex muttered under his breath, earning a sharp look from Evelyn. "We can negotiate," Evelyn said, keeping her tone measured. "Nobody needs to get hurt." The leader smirked. "You think this is a negotiation? Wrong line of work, sweetheart." The tension snapped like a rubber band. Tex lunged to the side, his gun drawn, and chaos erupted. Bullets flew, the sharp cracks echoing through the alley. Evelyn ducked behind a dumpster, her heart pounding as she returned fire. Tex's voice cut through the chaos. "You sure know how to pick your missions, Doc." The fight was brutal and relentless. Evelyn's calculated movements contrasted with Tex's raw, almost reckless approach. They managed to take out 2 of the mercenaries, but the odds weren't in their favor. Just as one of the mercenaries closed in on Tex, a loud metallic clang echoed through the alley. Sofia appeared, wielding a length of rusted pipe. The mercenary crumpled to the ground, and Sofia flashed Tex a rare grin. "You're welcome." "Remind me to buy you dinner," Tex quipped, reloading his weapon. "Focus," Evelyn snapped, her mind racing. "We can't stay here." "Sofia, did you find an escape route?" Sofia nodded, tossing the pipe aside. "There's a drainage tunnel a block over. It's risky, but better than this." "Let's move," Evelyn ordered. The trio covered each other as they retreated, the remaining mercenaries regrouping, but not pursuing. It felt too easy, and that gnawed at Evelyn's instincts. Back at the factory, Jonas heard the faint sound of gunfire in the distance. He tensed, gripping his medical kit as if it were a shield. Raul stirred, his voice barely a whisper. "They're coming, they'll kill us all." "Who?" Jonas demanded, leaning closer. "Who's coming?" Raul's eyes fluttered open, his gaze unfocused. "The bank. They don't leave loose ends." Before Jonas could respond, the factory door creaked open. He spun around, his heart leaping into his throat, but it was Evelyn, Tex, and Sofia. They were battered and exhausted, but alive. Relief washed over Jonas like a wave, though his earlier doubts still simmered beneath the surface. "We've got the supplies," Evelyn announced, dropping her bag on the table. Tex stabilized Raul. "Jonas, help him." As they worked, Sofia pulled Evelyn aside. "Those weren't cartel," she said quietly. "They were professionals. Someone else is pulling the strings." "I know," Evelyn replied, her voice low but firm. "And we're going to find out who. But first we save Raul." Sofia hesitated. What if saving him puts us all in more danger? Evelyn met her gaze, unwavering. "We don't leave people behind, no matter what." Tex and Jonas managed to stabilize Raul, though his condition was still critical. The team gathered around the stretcher, their exhaustion palpable. Evelyn glanced at each of them, her expression hardening. "We've been lied to, used, but we're not quitting. We'll finish this mission, and then we'll make them pay." The resolve in her voice reignited the team's determination, but the unspoken question lingered. Could they truly trust each other, or had the seeds of betrayal already taken root? Chapter 7, The Final Gamble. The abandoned factory felt like a ticking time bomb. Every creak of the old machinery, every distant echo from outside, carried the weight of impending danger. Raul lay on the stretcher, his face pale and glistening with sweat, while the rest of the team prepared for what would undoubtedly be their most perilous move yet. The truth was out. They had been used, manipulated by shadowy forces at the bank that had funded them. Now, the mission was no longer about saving Raul. It was about surviving and exposing the truth. Evelyn stood at the center of the room, her voice calm but sharp as she addressed the team. "Listen up. We've got 2 priorities. Get Raul to safety, and make sure we don't end up buried with the secrets they're trying to hide. We stick together, we stay smart, and we move fast." Tex, leaning against a rusted pillar, gave a nod. "Sounds good. Document. Any bright ideas on how we outsmart a global bank with a hit squad?" Sofia was already typing furiously on her tablet. "I've got a lead. There's an encrypted server farm in the city, a facility tied to the bank. If we can get in, I might be able to find evidence, emails, transaction logs, anything that ties them to this mess." Jonas blinked, clearly overwhelmed. "Wait, you want to break into a server farm? Isn't that insane?" Probably, Sofia replied without looking up, her tone as matter-of-fact as ever. But it's our best shot. Evelyn turned to Raul, who was barely conscious. Can he be moved? Tex checked his vitals, his expression grim. Barely, but we don't have a choice. The team set out under cover of darkness, using back alleys and side streets to avoid detection. The tension was palpable, every step laced with the fear of ambush. Sofia led the way, her tablet guiding them through the maze of the city. Tex and Jonas carried Raul on the stretcher, their movements synchronized out of necessity. When they reached the server farm, the building loomed like a fortress. High fences, security cameras, and guards patrolling the perimeter made it clear that this wouldn't be easy. Evelyn studied the layout, her mind racing. Sofia, is there any way to disable the cameras? Not remotely, Sofia admitted. We'll have to go old school. Tex smirked. Old school, huh? Let's hope these guards are as bad at their jobs as the ones in the movies. The team moved with precision, sticking to the shadows as they bypassed the main entrance. Sofia used a handheld jammer to disable a section of the fence's electric current, allowing them to slip through. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. Sofia worked quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard of a terminal. "Give me a few minutes," she whispered, her voice taut with concentration. "I just need to access the mainframe." Evelyn and Tex stood guard, their weapons drawn. Jonas hovered near Raul, who was barely holding on. The faint hum of the servers filled the room, a monotonous drone that only heightened the tension. Suddenly, Sofia's eyes widened. "Got it. Emails, transactions, directives, it's all here. They've been running covert operations, using us as cover for..." Her words were cut off by the sound of footsteps. Evelyn's heart sank. They'd been found. "Move." Evelyn barked, her voice slicing through the haze of panic. Sofia grabbed a portable drive, yanking it from the terminal as the team scrambled to retreat. Guards flooded the room, their shouts echoing off the walls. Gunfire erupted. Tex and Evelyn provided cover, their shots precise but desperate as they fought to hold off the advancing guards. Sofia clutched the drive like a lifeline, her usually stoic demeanor replaced by sheer determination. Jonas, trembling but resolute, helped Raul as best he could, dragging the stretcher toward the exit. As they burst through a side door, an explosion rocked the building behind them. Sofia had set a timed charge to cover their escape, the blast lighting up the night sky like a beacon. The team collapsed into an alley, their breaths ragged, their bodies battered but alive. Evelyn turned to Sofia. "Did you get it?" Sofia held up the drive, her eyes fierce. Every last bite. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a flicker of hope shone in Evelyn's eyes. But as distant sirens grew louder, she knew their fight was far from over. Chapter 8, Shadows Revealed. The night was heavy with anticipation as the team huddled in a deserted safe house on the outskirts of the city. The faint hum of distant traffic filled the air, a backdrop to the crackle of Sofia's laptop as she began decrypting the data from the stolen drive. The flickering light from the screen cast long shadows on the walls, mirroring the shadows that loomed over the team. They had survived, but the weight of their ordeal was far from lifted. Evelyn leaned against the table, her arms crossed as she watched Sofia work. Her mind raced with the implications of what they might uncover. They had risked everything to get this evidence. Every shot fired, every wound sustained, every moment of doubt and fear had led to this point. Now the truth was within reach. Tex sat nearby, absently toying with his lighter. "So, Doc," he said, breaking the silence, "what happens if we crack this thing open and it's all just a bunch of corporate mumbo-jumbo?" Evelyn didn't look at him. "It won't be." Jonas, still visibly shaken from the night's events, spoke up. "And if it is, what if Raul was wrong? What if we went through all this for nothing?" Raul, lying on the couch with his bandaged wounds, let out a weak chuckle. "You don't survive in my world by being wrong. Trust me, the bank's dirtier than you can imagine." Sofia's fingers stilled, her eyes narrowing as the screen displayed a progress bar nearing completion. "Almost there," she said, her voice taut with concentration. The seconds stretched into eternity as the bar finally filled, and a cascade of files spilled onto the screen. Emails, spreadsheets, and confidential memos painted a damning picture. The bank had been funneling money into illegal operations, using the HRT missions as cover to move assets and eliminate threats. Worse still, some of the orders had come directly from the bank executives funding the team. They had been nothing more than expendable pawns. Evelyn's stomach turned as she read the emails. Every mission she had led, every life she had fought to save, had been tainted by the bank's corruption. "They've been playing us," she said, her voice low and furious. "All of us." Sofia nodded grimly. "It's all here. Names, dates, transactions. Enough to bring them down." Tex leaned back in his chair, letting out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. Guess the suits aren't as untouchable as they thought." Jonas, still processing the revelation, asked, "So, what do we do now?" Evelyn straightened, her resolve hardening like steel. "We expose them. We take this to the media, to the authorities, anyone who will listen." Raul coughed weakly, drawing their attention. "You need to be careful. They won't go down without a fight. We're not afraid of them," Evelyn said, her tone unwavering. Sofia began copying the files onto multiple drives, ensuring that the evidence would survive even if they didn't. "Once this gets out, they'll have nowhere to hide," she said. The team moved quickly, splitting up to distribute the drives and prepare for what was to come. Tex took one, flashing his signature grin. "Guess I'm heading off to play delivery boy. Try not to miss me too much." Sofia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide a small smile. "Just don't get yourself killed." As the team prepared to leave the safe house, Evelyn looked around at her crew. Tex's confident smirk, Sofia's quiet determination, Jonas's nervous but resolute expression, and even Raul's weary smile. They had been through hell together, and though the road ahead was uncertain, they knew one thing for sure: they weren't going to back down. The first rays of dawn broke over the horizon as they stepped into the cool morning air. The shadows that had haunted them all night began to recede, but Evelyn knew the real fight was just beginning. The bank's reach was vast and their enemies were powerful, but so was the truth, and now they had it on their side. As they disappeared into the city, one by one, Evelyn allowed herself a small moment of hope. They had survived the darkness, and now they were ready to bring everything into the light.